Hello, how's everybody doing? So, I'm so excited because one of my favorite shows, Community, is now on Netflix. It was on Hulu before, which is great. But now it's on Netflix, which I don't know if more people have Netflix than Hulu, but people that didn't have Hulu, now it's on Netflix. So if you have never watched it before, I hope you get to check out some of the seasons because they're great. It's an ensemble show and it's based in Colorado at a community college. And the running gag throughout the whole thing is that this is not the best community college in their community. So it's kind of like it's just a very strange school. There's like very interesting classes. One of the running gags is that there's a class called Ladders, and there's another one that's like, can you fry this? Um, it's a pretty fun show. And it's just like a bunch of ragtag characters that they were a study group, and then they became like a family, like a chosen family, and they just help each other. It's a lot of most of not mo well, so there's Jeff, who's the main character, and he was a lawyer, and he faked getting a degree, so he has to go back to college to finish his degree. And he likes to spin things, so he is very good at like making passionate speeches and helps people kind of confront their issues and bring it out loud, and then they kind of all process together. So it's a fun show. So that's the basic general outline. The other characters are Pierce. He's an older guy who's pretty racist and just weird. Um, and then there's Britta, who lived in New York, and she's an activist, a non-practicing activist. And there is Shirley, who is she's a mom. She has two kids. Sometimes she's divorced. Sometimes she's with her husband. There's Troy, who was an athlete. Um, there is Abed, who is a film student. There's Annie, and she's just like young go getter. She's fun. And then there's the dean, who's great. He's just very flamboyant. And so that's like the main, and that's like the main like staple characters. And then there's always like reoccurring students that come in and out. There's guest stars that play play different teachers, which is really cool. So the episode I'm going to review right now is it's like a extracurricular activities in this one. So I'm going to be doing season 1, episode 9. It's called Debate 109. The cool thing about this show is that all the episodes are named after they're named after different classes. Um, so there's one in the future that I'll do that's about physical education, and that's more of like a class based episode. There's usually 2 or 3 storylines, like any traditional show, usually. And so because it's an ensemble, they can do like a 3, like a line, a B line, a C line story. So this one was released November 12th, 2009. I'm just looking at my notes. Um, and this one I picked to review because it is very character driven. So if you haven't seen it yet, you should. But I'll also kind of get into all the subplots. But this one is a good one because even though it's extracurricular one, it kind of hits all, like it's an earlier obviously an earlier episode in the show, because there's six seasons, so this one is a good one to like really, if you're watching for the first time, you could start with this one if you want to get it. Talks about the characters like really in depth, I think. It has a great cameo by John Michael Higgins. He played a teacher in 3 episodes of Community in the first season. And so one of the A line, A story is he is the debate coach. And so he is trying to get Jeff into to do debate with Annie. And like I said, Annie is a very go-getter. So she is just like super passionate about it. She becomes very like robotic when she's debating. She has a lot of this. So that was fun to see. I personally have never done debate, but I'm a nerd, and so I've watched other schools do debate. So I know the format of it. Like there's an intro, then you're like point, counterpoint. It's a lot of like facts and figures, just to drive home your point. And so that's, they talk about it, like the different parts of the debates. The B line is, the B story is Britta is trying to quit smoking. And I honestly don't remember her smoking that much in the previous episodes. I mean, she does, but it's not like heavily emphasized. But so she's trying to quit smoking, and so she's very agitated at everybody, as people are when they're trying to quit smoking. And Pierce, he's the old guy, he wants to be useful. That's one of his motivations throughout the whole series, is he really like wants to prove that he's not just an old man, like he has use. And so that's this is a good episode because it comes across very comical with him trying to prove that he can do this. So he's trying to hypnotize Britta to help her quit smoking. And so that's we'll get into more of that. It's pretty funny. And then the C story is Abed is a film student, and so he connects to people by stories, by television plots. Like that's how he connects with people. It's not really said out loud, but it's implicated that he has Asperger's. He's on the autism spectrum. The person that he is based off of does have autism. He's on the autism spectrum. So it's not really said out loud. It's hinted a lot. One of the other episodes I'll talk about, there's a lot of, like, they'll start talking about it and then they'll stop and then they'll be like, oh, 'cause they don't really, they know, but they don't want to, like, put a label on it. So the way that he connects to people is through TV. So anyway, so the C story is he's making films, and they will so the film that they're watching is a retelling of their whole group, what happened last episode. So you can actually, if you watch this episode, you'll see in the film that he makes a little bit about what happened last episode. But the point is that Abed made the movie a week or two before those events played out. So the whole ongoing thing is like Abed can tell the future. But Abed defends himself by saying that he just knows human nature. Like he knows his friends well enough that he can predict what they're going to do in any given scenario. So that's the C story, is them just like trying to figure out his films and why he would say certain things. So those are the story points. So John Michael Higgins makes a really good job at Jeff's character. So Jeff is played by Joel McHale, who used to be, he's been likened to Ryan Seacrest a lot throughout his career, and he worked for the E Network. So one of the ways that they tried to get Jeff character to debate is John Michael Higgins says, Jeffrey, as debate coach, I'm offering you the opportunity to spend the night drinking the cup of life rather than romancing your nether regions in front of the E channel. So that was like the writers having fun with like making fun of Joel McHale for being on the E Network, which I thought was very funny. And the dean is in this episode, and so he talks a lot about like how the only thing that the school is known for, like the sports, the only way that they're known is because the basketball team is super gay. And which, I mean, not really the best thing to call out, but I think that's just one of the ways the writers are trying to say, like, this school is not the best, and this is an example of that. When they try to get Jeff to join debate, it's really funny because the dean offers Jeff, like, ooh, if you do this, you can get a free parking spot, and we could have a night together. And Jeff is like, no, thank you. And it's just one of the, like, you'll kind of see throughout the show when you watch more how much of a crush the dean has on Jeff. And I like how it's not very subtle. Like, he tries to be subtle, but he is not very subtle. And it just kind of, Jeff sometimes kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Like, he tries to, take it in, but then, like, doesn't, it doesn't seem to reciprocate. Let's see. So, okay, so the scene where Britta is getting hypnotized by Pierce, she's trying to indulge him, and so it's so funny because Chevy Chase plays Pierce, and Chevy Chase, when he was on SNL, did a lot of slapstick humor, and so this episode has a lot of slapstick material. The room where he tries to hypnotize her is like a storage room with instruments, like a lot of percussion instruments, a lot of like standing up drums. And so Britta's trying to pretend to be so hypnotized by this that she lets Pierce just fall on top of all these drums, and doesn't want to wake up and help him because she's like, no, I'm trying to like help his self-esteem. But it's so funny, like him just like falling over all the instruments, and that happens again. But the first time he does it, he actually injures his leg, because in the next few scenes you'll see him with like a walking cast, like if you hurt your knee and you have that cast thing that's on. So when they're debating, the first scene when they start debating, Annie's very robotic. She does her intro just very robotic. Then when Jeff goes, he's like, hey, I was a lawyer. I don't need to give you facts and figures, even though that's what debate is. He's just like, I'm going to sing it to you. So he just starts singing, and like the whole place is singing with him. And then the opposite team gets 50 points, and Greendale Community College only gets 8 points. And that's because Annie's the only one that got the points, is what they tell her. Because even though she was a robotic, she she followed the rules. So let me look up. I have it written in my notes. The person that they are um, debating against. So his name is Aaron Himmelstein, and his character's name is Jeremy Simmons. Jeff calls him Jeremy Soul Patch Simmons because he's got like a ponytail and he's got a little soul patch and he's got glasses. And he's just kind of arrogant and like thinks he's the best. After their loss, so the debate gets interrupted. So this is another a chance for the writers to show how shitty Greendale is. They do the intro for the debate, and then all of a sudden they're in the gym, and then all of a sudden the basketball team comes, and it's like a very young, tall, thin guy with a big old mustache. And he's just like, hey, we have the gym reserved right now. And then the dean looks, he's like, oh, yep, that's right. They have the gym reserved. So we'll have to do this tomorrow. So Annie tries to do reverse psychology because Jeff is like, no, I don't want to do this. And she's like, oh, like you should, just trying to convince him. And, he's like, oh, yeah, I totally want to get back. And she's like, really? No, that's bullshit. Like, I'm only doing this for the parking spot. These are one of the earlier episodes where Jeff is just really arrogant. You can tell that he's really selfish. He only wants to be nice to get things for himself. And then Simmons comes in and is just like, just dissing Jeff, and he's like, whatever. And then he disses Annie, and Jeff is like, no, that's not okay. I'm gonna debate the living crap out of you. So Annie doesn't really have a hold on Jeff at that point to like want him to do debate, but because this other guy insulted Annie, now it's like hurting his ego, and he's like, this cannot fly. Throughout this time, Shirley is just so convinced that Abed can tell the truth with all of his videos. And then, so Abed shows him what he's working on, and it's her being chased by a werewolf. And then she passes, in the video, the character of Shirley passes Jeff and Annie's character making out. And so Shirley pops in to Jeff and Annie, being like, oh, Abed thinks you guys are gonna kiss, ha ha ha, like he's silly, this is silly, whatever. So it's Abed's trying to appease Shirley and like ease her mind. When Jeff and Annie are studying, they have a great thing where he's just like, oh, I got this headache like right here, and she's like, that's a stress headache, I've had them since I was 4. He's like, I hate it. She's like, oh, what's the exact word she says? I love it. She's like, get used to it. You're knee deep in it now, brother. This is debate. And Jeff is trying to be like, like, don't be so robotic. Like, you gotta let loose. And, Shirley comes in and is like, Abed thinks you guys are gonna make out. And so because that seed has been planted, they both get very aroused, and there's a lot of male gaze in this scene, which wasn't a huge fan of, but it's to get like, I guess it's to move the story with them believing that they could make out. And they get kind of flustered. They're like, we're just gonna do this by ourselves. We're gonna study by ourselves. So when they are debating, John Michael Higgins makes a remark, which is funny. It was like, oh, you're doing so good. You remind me of a younger me, but with less perfect hair. And Annie's just like, it's true. Because that's a big thing, is like Jeff's hair. It's like a running thing. So there's a classic trope because Annie and Jeff are doing so good. They're vibing super good. Um, and so there's a classic trope of Simmons, the other debater, he like rips up his cards and tosses them over his shoulder. It's very dramatic. And he is in an electronic wheelchair. So to prove the point, oh yeah, I didn't even tell you what the point of the debate is. It's is man born evil or are they born good? So Jeff and Annie are saying man is evil. Simmons is saying man is good. So to prove this, to go off book, since he's such a pro, because it's so close, the debate with the points, he takes his wheelchair and he drives himself forward and all of a sudden stops it so his body flings out of his chair. And so Jeff steps in front, catches him, and Simmons is like, hey, this guy caught me. Man is good. And they think they're going to win. And then Annie all of a sudden makes out with Jeff, and Jeff drops Simmons. And then Annie breaks away and she says, he kissed me. He was horny and he dropped him. Therefore, man is evil. And then I love the song Home by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros starts playing. And it's just like one of those like, what is going on? And then, so they're all like, the ensemble is watching in the crowd and they're like, I guess Abed's videos are correct. And Britta is cured from smoking because of a comment that Pierce had made earlier in the episode about he's trying to say like, oh, if you start smoking a cigarette, maybe you could envision like having a threesome with me. And so Britta's like, I'm cured because all I could think about was having a threesome and that disgusts me and I can't smoke anymore. You're a genius. And so the episode ends with them kind of being like, ooh, is Abed's movies correct? So that is the episode. And I'm trying to think. The reason I really like this episode is I like John Michael Higgins. I think he's pretty funny in this. I like the music. I like that it's character driven. I feel like this is a good episode to get into the characters. I think that I just like how nerdy debate is and how they use that in this episode. Please let me know if you have any comments, if I missed anything, or if you had any thoughts for yourself. I realize this tape is pretty much longer than the actual episode. So you can watch this, you could watch the episode, you could watch both. You have a lot of time on your hands. It is Sunday. So let me know what you think. Bye.